Hello everyone, Teresa Van Leash out here. I hope everybody is well. I'm doing this video about my vision for a Bill of Rights for Australia. Do you like my t-shirt? Australia, love it or leave it. Yes, I passionately believe that if you love Australia first and love to live here and be Australian, live here. If not, don't live here. Okay, Bill of Rights. Now, I've published this more than 10 years ago on my political website. I've got 15 Bill of Rights components, and I think I'm pretty much the only political person in Australia who is promoting a Bill of Rights, actively, publicly promoting a Bill of Rights. Now, this is all for my Governor-General campaign, so I'm going to continue to say what I'll do and say when I'm in the Governor-General's residence. So as a priority, a Bill of Rights for the Australian people is a priority, like in the first week. And I'll use all the powers of the Constitution and the Commonwealth law and the state law and public resources to make that happen, because Section 61 to 70, the head of government is the Governor-General in Council, which is the Governor-General and the Federal Executive Council, up to 30 politicians. So the Governor-General can make and sign their own laws. There's nothing in the Constitution that says you can't do that, and you'll do with the Federal Executive Council up to 30 politicians. Now, they don't want a Bill of Rights and they shouldn't be in the Parliament. Simple as that, federal and state. Now, this should have been done, 100 years ago. It should have been done from the start of Federation, a Bill of Rights. Should have been the first thing to be put in a Constitution. I'm talking about a Bill of Rights in a Commonwealth law, which doesn't require a Section 128 referendum in the Constitution. So in a Commonwealth law, it's easy to legislate a Bill of Rights. I'm going to go through rather quickly to what these 15 Bill of Rights components are, just so the video is not too long. I'll try and expand on each a little bit, but I want to get this, so that's not too long, because for obvious reasons. Okay, number one, freedom of speech. Now, freedom of speech has to be number one because it's the hallmark of a democratic, a hallmark of a democratic, just and free society, freedom of speech. Now, what's antithetical to freedom of speech is defamation. We have defamation laws, we have civil defamation laws, and we have criminal defamation, which is very rarely used. So freedom of speech needs to be number one for everybody, okay? That means you've got the right to express yourself freely in society and online, and the media has freedom of speech, and that has to be, that has to be 100%. We have to have very strong freedom of speech laws so that we can freely express ourselves. When people can freely express themselves, they're much less likely to go to violence. So freedom of speech needs to be absolutely 100% promoted. Okay, free association. Number two, free association. So the public has the right to freely associate with whoever they want in whatever group or, activity or organisation. Free association. Number three, freedom of assembly. So the public always has a right to freely assemble in public for whatever purpose, their own purposes, to exercise their own freedom and rights. So that's very important. Number four, parental rights. Parents bring children into the world. They must be able to have control over their children in terms of education, what goes into their body, decisions about their own children, how that, everything to do, how they protect their children, even how they discipline the children, which is, can be taught in educational contexts and supporting. We must support parents. No more of this government child stealing going on. You can't take children away from parents unless there's a criminal charge. Of all the evidence I've seen over the past 10 years, they go in and they take the child on such trivial complaints. And you have to have a criminal charge against the parent, because to be able to take that, not take the child, but you criminally charge the parent. Now, 99% of parents love their children and want to care for their children. Yes, there are parents that are much better than some parents are better than others, so we need to support the parents, help the family, keep the family together. So if there's a sexual violation or a serious physical violation against the child, you have to charge the parent criminally, and that parent, the child stays with the other parent or the family. supportive services, because this ripping children away and putting them with the strangers, they can get raped, they can even get murdered, and they can get beaten. Then they cut the birth parents off, they don't get to see them, and it causes massive, massive problems. So this whole child stealing thing they've been doing the last 100 years, the politicians and the government workers, is just to destroy the family. It's to destroy parents, the family unit, and it's to terrorize families. So that's been very bad. The family court needs fixing. So with that could be 50-50 parental custody automatic, and also make it go through very fast. So maximum 6 months, none of this dragging on divorces and separation. If there's children concerned, that needs to go through a lot faster. So the family court needs fixing. We need new judges, new courts, and we need, you know, proper solutions. 50-50 custody, unless there's a proven sexual violation or a serious criminal violent violation against a child, which 99% of parents don't do. So that should be going a lot smoother and a lot faster than it has been. Also, if you force men mostly to pay maintenance and they don't get there to see their children, well, that's wrong, it's unjust, it's disgusting. You know, you can't force a parent to pay money to the other parent and they don't get to see their children. That's horrific. Also, we have to look at restraining orders too, and you know, the one parent may be stopping the other parent seeing the children. By using that, we have to stop that. So there's lots of things that can be improved, and parental rights needs to be in a Bill of Rights, because parents need to be able to see their children, they need to be able to protect their children, and they need to make decisions about their children regarding their education, their health, their everything. Everything. So we need to support parents and build the family up a lot more. Okay, 5, teachers' rights and education rights. So all Australians will have rights to a good quality, excellent education. And I want to see teacher budgets and a lot more Christian teachers in the school system, a lot more Christian education as well. Also with education rights, we have big problems in the university system. There are 38 universities wasting $1 billion a year. That's right, $1 billion a year actively recruiting foreign students, which is just disgusting. That has to stop. So we need rules where 80 to 90% of Australian university places must be Australian-born students, and then access to private education and public education as well, so everybody gets rights to a quality education, Australian born and Australian citizens. So that has to be a priority. 6, homeowner property rights. So homeowner property rights, so economic cap on homeowner rates, the rights to subdivide property, to sell land and build additional houses, which will help with the homeless problem. And we need to build 1 million homes. We need to have strong property rights, I believe minimum 500 square metres, so the house can be built in a bit of a backyard for if they have children to play, and you know, limits, say 2-story limits. So after that 2-story, there must be some sort of consultation process with the community, and no council interference to say you can't subdivide your property, you can't make home improvements, you can't you know, so we can bypass the councils and the state governments and all these charges and fees that they do. We need to have economic caps on that as well. So we want to build 1 million homes for Australians, you know, Australian home ownership, and that means that property rights need to be massively improved and increased. So people can subdivide, they can sell their land, and they can people can then purchase and build a home. And they can also, you know, make renovations and build additional rooms and houses and kitchens, bathrooms, pergolas, pools, build additional buildings and sheds, build extra on your property. So if you have an acre property and you want to build a granny flat, you want to build a second house for family to visit or friends and family to visit, you should be able to do that. The council's putting a gun to people's heads about, and the state government saying you can't subdivide, you can't, you know, you need our approval, you need to, you know, to put a pergola in or to put an extra bathroom in or extra 2 bedrooms. You need our building approval permission. We need to get rid of that. We seriously need to get rid of that. That is disgusting. So the rule I want to make is that it's to professional building people to sign off on the paperwork. Could be a registered builder, surveyor, engineer, any sort of building construction person or company, and they can sign off. Could be an architect, and they sign off the paperwork, and then you go and subdivide or you go and build. We need to make it much easier. So then you've got your paperwork in order and two professionals signing off on that, and you go through the process. So we need to stop the state governments and the councils from stopping people subdividing and building and extending their extra houses, rooms, bathrooms, pergolas, pools, sheds, that sort of thing. So we really need to do that in order to get that, million homes built. And once we do that, then people will be able to build more homes, and we have to look at getting resources, making sure that manufacturing with, the brick industry, they need to get massive support, and wood industry and all these industries for materials and labour. We need to train thousands and hundreds of thousands of apprenticeships in the TAFE system and the school system. And we can start that now with our materials. We need to really promote our brick building materials and wood building materials and all our steel building materials. And we need to really, really promote those so that we can get those materials for building houses. Okay, economic rights. Number 7, economic rights, citizens' economic rights. So the rights to prosper, the rights to a job, the rights to create a business and build a business and develop a business, because the small business people, they got 70% of the jobs. They create 70% of the jobs. So we massively need to support small business, working people, and Australian companies, all Australian owned and made. And so you have the right to prosper economically. We need a cost of living law, a Commonwealth cost of living law, so that you've got the right to prosper economically, and essential services, gas, water, electricity, homeowner rates, state government fees and charges, council fees, all those I went through in the economic vision video of all. We need an economic cost of law, Commonwealth cost of living law, and that goes through all the state government charges and all the council's charges and all registration, business registration, professional registrations, all essential services, gas, water, electricity. We need to put economic caps on those essential services. That will bring the cost of living right down, and that will bring, save you thousands and thousands of dollars every year. Number 8, rights to a home. So if you don't have a home and you're born, and I've got Bill of Rights for Australian extra special rights, special provisions for Australian born. So I like to see the Australian born people be able to, have the right to a home. And number 8, right to a home. So, the ability to buy land and buy a home, have a house built. So lending availability through the banking system, and we can control the Reserve Bank at 1% lending rates, and then 2% home loan rates, 3% business rates, business loans, and 5% personal home loans. So we need to control the Reserve Bank for that, to regulate, have a new banking law, but then that lending will be available to the public so that you have the right to home ownership, especially Australians born here. But if you come here, become a citizen, then you have a right to a home as well, to buy a home, build a home, and, but we need to look after our own people first. Okay, elderly rights, number 9. Now, elderly rights is really important because elderly people, they're subjected to abuse, and they're vulnerable people by the fact that they're coming into elderly age, and they need a right to be living in their own home and pass away and go to heaven when they pass away in their own home, and stay in their own home till they pass away, and all those rights need to be protected. So if they want to stay in their own home till the end of their life, then they have the right to get access to services, so which we can fund through the Commonwealth for people to go into the home and provide meals and cleaning services, and they can help pay for that as well. So don't get forced to leave the home. They have rights, and that needs to be in law, that the elderly people need rights to stay in their own home if they want to stay there till they pass away and not be forced into a nursing home or anything like that. We have to also look at the drugging of elderly people. The pharmaceutical drugging of Australians is horrendous, and we need to abolish that. We need to stop that forced drugging, and the elderly people are particularly vulnerable, and other vulnerable Australians as well, where they're forced and coerced to take flu injections, COVID injections, psychiatric drugs. This all needs to be banned, this sort of disgusting abuse and coercion, because the elderly people are particularly vulnerable, but also the homeless are vulnerable with that, and other people who have health problems are vulnerable to this horrific pharmaceutical drugging. So we need to ban that, and we need to have full rights in the law for them to say no, consent rights, and we need to have that, watch that very closely about what they are doing, these so-called medical people are doing to Australians in this area. And their rights need to be protected and monitored, and make sure that they're not being abused and that this is not going on anymore. Okay, legal representation rights. So the way they use the magistrates court is disgusting for 2 centuries, and they just drag you before that court and you don't have a lawyer, barely anything wrong, you didn't pay a fine or something very trivial, and they throw you in jail. No lawyer, nothing, and that's going to stop. Okay, we need a Bill of Rights court, which the magistrates court will be converted to a Bill of Rights court to enforce all these citizens' rights. And if you've got disputes with each other, you can go there. But real criminal cases need to go to the district court and Supreme Court. So, you know, murderers, rapists, drug traffickers, drug dealers, violent criminals, violent machete-wielding criminals, which I need to add to my political website, to deport foreign criminals. I am getting to that. Sorry, I haven't got to that yet. We also need to, I think, we need to deport foreign criminals. We need to close the border for at least 12 months. We need to fire all the people controlling the immigration departments and have Australian-born people in those departments. So anyway, you can't just lock people up without a lawyer. You can't, when the court, if there's a criminal case, has to be run by a lawyer on this side, that side. The way they're running it with the police and the maggots court is just bad, and that's got to stop. Okay, that's pretty much what Hitler did. So if you're convicted of, you're charged with a serious crime, yes, let's be tough on crime. Let's be tough on violent criminals. Let's be tough on, you know, murderers, rapists, drug traffickers, drug dealers, violent criminals. Yes, I support 100% that they're going to be going, somebody's ringing me, that they have to go to jail. We have to be tough on that. But that's not what they're not punishing real criminals in this country. They're putting homeless people in jail, and they don't have a lawyer. So legal representation rights is really important. Okay, 11, small business rights. As said already, and again, the small business people create 70% of jobs in Australia, and that's pretty much a global figure. So we need to support the small business people, promote them, help them, reduce bureaucracy and red tape, and get rid of a lot of this bureaucratic rubbish that goes on enforced by the states and the local councils, so that the business people are free of those constraints. And we need to just get rid of all this bureaucratic garbage and red tape, so that the small business people can thrive and prosper, and they can profit, and they can employ more people, and that's what they're good at. Number 12, working rights. So working rights is, you have a right to a job, not just left unemployed for 20 years, and none of this leaving people unemployed for 20 years. We need to actively create jobs for Australians, so we can offer people jobs. The Centrelink needs to be converted to Australian Jobs Agency. So a jobs agency where people that are unemployed can go in, and then small business and business people can, set up the jobs board, and their job then is to match that employer with the employee. So actively creating jobs, specialist jobs for long-term unemployed, for homeless people. We want homeless people in a job and a house, and making people work. We can't let people just be unemployed like this. It's not good for society. It's not good for them, and it's healthy people when they're working and they're providing for themselves, and they're you know, supporting themselves, they can get a house, they can have a family. We can't let people just suffer like this and allow, oh, I can't get a job, their self-esteem is very bad. It may be that they just haven't got the right level of education, or they haven't just been offered a job. And if they need support in that job, like, you know, what's wrong with having a bus of picking up 15 people and going around and taking them to their employment? You know, we need to come up with strategies like this where we can say, look, here's 3 jobs, pick one, and we're going to help you with transport, help you get your license. This is why we need to get rid of this disgusting fine system as well, because people suffer under the fine system. They become homeless, they get locked up in jail, and they can't drive. You can't drive, you can't get to work. So we need to get rid of that and say, we want everybody to be driving, and yes, have proper lessons and have proper driving lessons and make people competent drivers, but we want them driving. We want them to be able to get access to employment and you must have a car and a driver's license. So we need to encourage that. We need to put resources into that and make that happen. I want to see things happen. I'm a solutions person. I'm not interested in saying, oh, we can't do this, we can't do that. No, let's look at the solution. Let's go for it. Let's say, yes, let's try everything. Try all these. And the public has got the answers too. They know what to do. They want to do things that can help people be successful, and they need the freedom and the confidence and the support politically to be able to do that. So we need to encourage one another and say, let's make this happen. Working rights, disability rights. We have to look at the definitive of disability. A lot of people are on disability, they're not really disabled, I don't think. And even disabled people can work as well. There's a lot of people that are classified as disabled that probably want to work. Like, you know, if you can have Paralympics. I was a sport teacher. I'm a qualified teacher for 30 years, but I worked in the high school as a sport teacher and a social studies teacher. People who are disabled, you've got Paralympics, you've got people who are in wheelchairs and they go out and they do all this sports stuff. Disabled people can do things, they can. They've got something to contribute. They might want to study, they might want to work part-time, so we need to create specialist jobs for disabled people and just say, not make this disability something that, oh, that's the end of your life, you don't work, you don't contribute, you don't get an education. No, we need to be a lot more positive and encouraging so that people... you know, physical disability is one thing, and then there's supposedly other forms of disability, but then there's a lot of people that I believe that are on disability that, you know, in the NDIS, there's problems with that. There's some people rorting that and corrupting that, and we need to look at that as well. Not to say we're going to cut people off, but that people need support. I don't believe we should just cut people off the dole and cut them off disability. That's wrong. That'll make people homeless. But I think we need to say, no, here's 3 jobs and you need to do one. And even disabled people can work to some extent because that gives them purpose and hope, and they need opportunities. You know, we need specialist jobs for people who are disabled, who are classified as disabled, to say there's lots of things people that are disabled can do. There's something that can contribute. Even going to a group where they may provide support to other people or some sort of social activity, that's something that's active and productive and something that they can contribute and belong to, rather than just leaving them to their own devices. Consent rights, number 14. Consent rights, very important, that you have the right to say no if you don't want something put in your body, or you know, that you can't force, the government can't force you to do something or that's invasive or destructive or bad for you, and that you have the right to say what I get to put in my body, and that across the board. And, you know, coming onto your property as well, you've got property rights, you know, whether that's that horrible fire ant rat eradication program where they come and poison your property and all this, and they're violently doing that with the police. And no, that's your property. You've got a right to say if you're going to allow some poisons to be sprayed on your property, or who comes onto your property, or what's been done to your property. So consent rights say, no, you can't come onto my property and do that. If they're trying to say, you need to have a flu injection to visit your elderly grandmother or grandfather in a nursing home. No, you don't have a right to force that on people. If people want to go and visit them, or you can't, they can't be forced to be doing something that's morally objective to then say, well, you restricting that person or the other person. No, that's just like they did during the COVID lockdowns. That was the COVID lockdowns was horrendous. You cannot do that to a society. You cannot people need body autonomy and visitation rights, and you cannot violently force or coercively force a person or a family or relatives or friends to do something which may be harmful to them, and that's where consent rights are incredibly important. And number 15, freedom of religion. Freedom of religion is very important, especially the freedom of the Christian faith. Now, we've got section 116 of the Constitution, freedom of religion, and the Commonwealth is not allowed to make laws about religion. I'm not talking about imposing a law to say, this religion or that religion has to be promoted. But the thing is, freedom of religion also has to be defined too. So what is true religion? And of course, as a Christian teacher, I'm always going to promote the Christian faith. Okay, so there's some people may say a particular religion, it's not actually a religion, it's a political ideology. So we have to look at that too very carefully. What sort of religious rights and freedoms people do have, and looking at what true religion is. Well, I'll always, till the day I die, promote the teachings of the New Testament. And that's got nothing to do with the law, the political law. It's just I have a right to do that as a Christian leader. So the 27 million people of Australia agree with that. And that a Bill of Rights should include freedom of religion, that you have the right to go to church and you have the right to pray and sing in public and teach in public. And, of course, there's going to be a big public debate about what that will include. And we have to look quite closely at what is the definition of true religion as well. So, because you've got God and Jesus on the one side and then you've got the devil on the other side. It's in the New Testament. So it's not just freedom of religion is important for everybody to be able to freely express their religious views. Atheism is a type of religion. They worship the devil. Muslim men, they say that they worship a book, they worship the Quran, and then there has to be debate about what true religion is. So there's obviously, I want to see the Christian faith be promoted heavily in a Bill of Rights for freedom of religion, obviously, and we deserve a public discussion about that. And also voters to directly elect their own Governor-General and Federal Executive Council on separate election ballots and during the elections, which is section 61 to 70. So the job Prime Minister is not in the Constitution. If you want it in the Constitution, there has to be a section 128 referendum. And then I don't want to waste $450 million on one question, which they did with the voice thing, and that was a disaster. So if there's going to be a referendum, a section 128 referendum, there has to be a list of things. Do we put a Bill of Rights in the Constitution? Do we officially put the job of Prime Minister in the Constitution, because it's not in there? It's not lawful to call anybody Prime Minister in Australia. It's the Governor-General in charge, and also the Federal Executive Council, which is called the Governor-General in Council. You have to read those sections for yourself. In section 68 of the Constitution, the Governor-General is in charge of the military, is the Commander-in-Chief of the military. So that surpasses the power of any politician. And then you've got section 3A of the Federal Police Act, 1979. The Governor-General appoints commissioners of police and deputy commissioners of police, which means they take instructions from the Governor-General, not politicians. So we need to look at that very closely, because they've been lying. Those politicians have been lying to you. They've been lying to you for 125 years about how that Constitution's actually written and what the powers are in there for who is the head of government. And I'll do a separate video just on those sections in the future. All right, I'll leave it there. Bill of Rights in the Commonwealth law, which can be legislated in the first week when I'm in that Governor-General's residence, to give you all the power and rights and freedoms that you need to live a fulfilled life, and the freedom and rights to live and prosper and look after yourselves and your family. And that's why the Australian people need me in that Governor-General's residence, to keep your back. And all these One Nation politicians, Liberal and Nationals, they need to put me in that Governor-General's residence so I can watch their back and have their back, because there's so much toxicity in politics, sabotage, and so many problems, and it's a really toxic type of area. and that's why I'm interested in good and effective and excellent leadership. I hate the toxic nature of politics. This is why the people need me in that job, in that residence, so I can look after the good politicians and help them fulfill their goals and their vision, and also, watch what's going on to monitor. And you need people with wisdom and intelligence and discernment and excellent morals. And really, you can only get that from being a Christian, and you get that discernment and that wisdom and intelligence and having the right morals to make excellent decisions which impact millions of people. Okay, thanks.